You know those places people pay to go to? They're like big buildings with the virtual reality arena. Okay, that's what life is. Now, you know that headset they put over their eyes? That's what the Matrix does to the mind. You can see the eyes are the mind. It's making it see something that's not there, and you have people in the control room that are triggering these environments to be generated virtually. Remember one thing: the Matrix is virtual reality, and God is actual reality. Remember that. Remember that God is natural, organic, biological intelligence, and the Matrix is artificial intelligence. Remember that God is all things genuine and reality, organic, and the Matrix is synthetic, genetically modified, bioengineered. I can go on for hours. But nonetheless, back to the virtual reality arena. Here you are entering a building, life, and you're about to put on that headset, the Matrix, and you're about to experience, illusionary landscapes, the simulator, that the mind is going to be deceived into believing that is reality, aka narratives, social engineering, propaganda. You know how it rolls. And the soul, which is the person inside that costume with the headset on, is going to be freaked out because these three-dimensional simulators are going to actually convince the mind that what it's seeing is real. And that's what paralyzes the mind with fear. Now, let me give you an example. Those places that they have those 3D rides, like the one I went on was Wings Over Washington in Seattle. Okay, and now they want to do movie theaters like this to give you the full three-dimensional experience. I know they have a lot of them in the parks down in Florida. I'm not mentioning the name because that is the pedophile capital of the world. That place begins with a D, and it has three sixes in the logo. I don't want to post it because I don't want to get shut down. But oh yeah, it's right in your face. I mean, right in your face. Huh. If I were to do a video how blatantly obvious it is, you guys would be like, Jesus, why didn't I see this the whole time? Well, the reason why you don't see the three sixes in the D logo of that big park down in Florida is because you're operating in a one-dimensional mentality and you can't see it because your perceptive lens isn't high enough to see what's actually going on around you. That's the premise of my videos, to get you to get out of that low-dimensional plane of unconsciousness. But nonetheless, back to the virtual reality arena, it's basically the same thing anyway. But nonetheless, you are being susceptible to what those operators in the control room are doing, aka the Matrix, social media. You see where I'm going. Even the movie The Matrix, he had to sit in that seat with how the thing plugged over him, and it's the same freaking thing. I mean, for the love of God, look at the movie The Matrix. They're telling you over the top. I mean, that isn't a movie for your entertainment purposes. That's not even predictive programming. That is just brazen individuals that operate with complete impunity above the laws of man, but not above the laws of God, telling you to your face not only what they're doing to you, but how they perceive you and how they want you to perceive yourself. I mean, for the love of God, they even name it the Matrix. And in the third one, do you remember how it rolled? When he finally began to understand that this was an illusion and he took control over it and they didn't have any power over him anymore. If you really analyze that movie from the beginning, he didn't know. He thought he was actually in something that was real. So he was empowering an illusion to become his reality, and that was his hindrance. And as he gradually went on through the journey, he began to accumulate the experiences necessary to allow him to formulate an understanding that what he's seeing is actually an illusion. And he would empower himself and disempower that at the same time. And along the way, he garnered information from guides that allowed him to understand, listen, man, this isn't real. It's real because you're empowering it and you're making it real. That's the power that it has over you. And that's what a virtual reality arena does. It tricks the mind into believing that it's actually experiencing these things when it's just a freaking piece of plastic over your head. There's nothing actually moving. It's this very trippy holographic sense of these things actually happening, to the point where people will literally freak out that have those things on their head. And when you go to these 3D rides, I went on Wings of Washington. A friend of mine brought me there. It's a very unassuming place. I mean, it looks like Ranger Rick from the Canadian forest or something, like Smokey Bear. It was like, yeah, I was like, what is this place? This is nothing. She was like, oh, yeah, yeah, come on in. Well, she knew all the time because she's been there tons of times. So she knew exactly what I was in for. I didn't know. I was like, oh, what is this? This is no big deal. So you go in, you go up the stairs, you sit in this like log cabin type room type, very rustic, bucolic type thing, like a setting like a log cabin in the Canadian wilderness, like the Pacific Northwest type thing, like British Columbia, or like maybe up in Washington type of area. Anyway, they brief you. You see these three-dimensional panels, and this projection of a park ranger comes and he instructs you what to do, what not to do. Then there's a door behind you, and there's smoke and lights and stuff. It's real cool. You open the door, and the door takes you to this big, gigantic room, and you see what they have are like almost like roller coaster ride seats, but they're all level on the floor. There's a whole row of them. There's many rows, and each row has maybe like 10 across, and they have the straps and the harnesses that go over your shoulder. I'm like, what is this for? It looked to me just like a room, like a flat floor with big walls and some decorations and some like models and paintings and stuff on the surface of the walls. It's like no big deal. I said, why do we need seatbelts? She wouldn't answer me. I was like, why do we need seatbelts? She just smiled. She says, you'll see. Yeah, it's like no big deal. I was like, what is this? Unbeknownst to me, little did I know. If anybody's been on that, uh-huh. So anyway, when that whole thing started and the seats went vertical, I was like, yo. And then that's when the show began. And my mind freaking lost it. Because this ride convinced me that I was sailing 20,000 feet above an ocean. And my mind was so thoroughly convinced that I began to panic and freak out. Like, in other words, I was dangling like 20,000 feet above the surface of the ocean, that I can fall at any time to my death. And it has the water sprayed to really give a more intense sense of realism to it, which really intensified the experience. I was like, I panicked. And then in that moment, I realized the power that they have with their three-dimensional holographic illusionary simulated projector, the simulator. Then that's what the mind does. It immediately goes into panic mode when it gets into an area that it feels unsafe and unsecure, and that's what they do to you your whole life. If you don't believe me, go on one of these rides and see how it tricks the mind. They know what they're doing, folks. They know about human psychiatry and psychology because they created that system in the 1800s. They are the ones that created those systems. They know full well how to play you like a fool every single time. This whole thing is nothing but a virtual reality arena. You need to thrive inside of actual reality, which is your higher self, not a virtual reality, which is your ordinary self. That's the portion of you that is the physical unit that you incarnated in when you chose to come to this earth. And they didn't invest the time or the energy in informing you of who and what you really are, a cosmic being inhabiting a limited physical suit. So what they told you when you got here was, hey, guess what? All you see is all there is. And that's when the speech stopped, because they're not going to tell you what's going on, because it's up to you to find out on your own through your discoveries and experiences that you accumulate in this journey of what and who you really are and why you're here and your purposes and your reasons for being. Because the teacher is always in the classroom, but the teacher is always silent. Because you know who the teacher really is? You. And you're the student as well. That's the way it is. But I'm just trying to tell you in layman's terms, in plain, simple truth, this is what you're dealing with. It's a virtual reality arena. And that headset, that's the Matrix. And the Matrix is in the control room, programming the landscape and the environment and all the scenarios that play themselves out, that the mind is deceived into believing and tricked into believing that it's the truth. That's why it panics. So when you see it in that sense, then you'll understand there's nothing to be afraid of. Because it's a game, it's not real, and I'm not going to take it serious. So therefore, I'm not going to empower something that's virtual. I'm going to empower something that is actual. Actual reality, God. Not virtual reality, aka an illusion, which is the reptilians and their system. See it that way, because that's the only way it is. It doesn't matter what you believe, because the truth negates belief. The truth negates belief every time. What really matters is where you put your energy, how it's used, how it's applied, how it's utilized, and for what purpose. If it's for nefarious purposes, that's going to come back and bite you in the butt. But if it's for righteous purposes, then your rewards just are unlimited. Because there's consequences, ramifications, and repercussions for all your sins and transgressions on this earth. And I'm not speaking in a religious sense. I'm not, just to try to avoid any religious connotations. It has nothing to do with religion. Unfortunately, the name God and Jesus are synonymous with religion, which is a greatest tragedy. But notwithstanding any religious connotations, there are consequences for your actions. But if you have good intentions and you pursue those good intentions through to fruition through your actions in the physical, then you don't have anything to worry about. But as long as you stay grounded in your actual reality, aka your higher self, aka your soul, aka God, aka you, you're going to be all right. Don't get lost in the moment. By that, I mean, when that crazy reality, virtual reality goes haywire and you start all kinds of craziness, just say to yourself, this is a goggles headset or whatever it is they call those things, virtual reality headset. It's not real. It's not happening. I'm not going to be fooled. When I was on that ride, I slipped right into, the old noodle mode. And my soul just went right out the window. And I'm being honest with you. I'm not lying. I don't lie in my videos. I don't I do this. I've got my life together and I'm perfect and, I'm better than you. Not at all. I'm imperfect. I'm perfectly imperfect. As a matter of fact, I've always said to myself, if I stand at the farthest away from where perfection is, and I'm very happy to because I'm a good person. I'm not perfect and I never will be. Perfection doesn't exist. That's why I always say practice breeds proficiency. Perfection does not exist. It's an illusion. It's an elusive illusion that eludes you, and you'll never be able to attain it because it's unrealistic. It's unattainable. It's never been created because it's imaginary. But anyway, see this as a 3-dimensional ride, just like down in Florida and that amusement park that begins with a D that has 3 sixes, and it's a satanic pedophile playland down there, and that's exactly what it is. If you ever get a chance to go on one of these 3D rides, I encourage you to go because you'll see how easy they can trick the mind into believing that this static ride is actually making you think that you're moving and flying. It's what they refer to as a gimbal. They use them in Hollywood a lot, especially if you have those like airplane movies where, you see these people doing that. It's a gimbal. It rotates, it gyrates and it moves around and it oscillates and so on and so forth and it undulates. And these are gimbals that are powered by hydraulics, and it's just all of that stuff working in symphony with each other, working in tandem that convinces the mind that this experience is real. It's time to panic and freak out and just go nuts. And they generate these things constantly in the matrix because that's why it's always an atmosphere of fear and paranoia because you can't think for yourself. You are paralyzed beyond the capacity for all rational thought when you're in that state of panic, and they keep you there constantly. So it all ties in to every other thing going on around in the world. No matter what you hear in the news, it's all propagated nonsense and orchestrated chaos. It's garbage. It's just regurgitated filth. It's the old paradigm being repackaged as some brand new, nugget. But you can't polish poop, folks. You can package it and box it, but when you open up the box, it's all going to stink. I'm just saying. So see it as a virtual reality arena and just ground yourself in the actual reality of God. That I'm not going to panic and fall for this illusion and make it become my reality because I'm not empowering it. You're not going to deceive me into empowering it. That is what they do. They trick you into believing that what you see is real through the power of suggestive influence. If they can convince you that it's real, you will empower this thing to become real, and it will become real. You don't believe me? Check out the placebo effect. I remember, like I said, I saw an episode of MASH many years ago where they ran out of morphine, and the doctors were perplexed. They were like, what do we do? He was like, I don't know. What do we do? Well, the supply lines are cut off. There's a war going on, and they can't get to us and supply us with the things we need. So what do we do? He said, what do we have in stock? Well, listen, we have sugar cubes. We have sugar tablets. And the guy said, placebo? He said, yeah. And he said, let's do it. So the little tiny paper cups, he put sugar tablets in it, unbeknownst to the soldiers that these were sugar tablets. But what the doctors did was brilliant. Knowing the power of the mind, if it's convinced that something is real, it makes that a reality. And these guys were in pain, had their legs blown off and everything, all bleeding. And what the doctors did, they went around to every one of these soldiers, at least 20 of them, and they were like, Doc, what is this? This is a super, super powerful medication that's 1,000 times more powerful than morphine. But you have to be very careful because it's so powerful that it can just, knock you out in a second. Just take it. I can only give you one. And he was telling him all this nonsense that wasn't true. Through the power of suggestive influence, he was convincing the soldier that what he was saying is the truth. The soldier's mind went into effect and said, okay, I'm convinced, so I'm going to empower this to become my reality, so therefore it shall be. And that's exactly what happened. Because they were told by someone who they had faith in that would help them, doctors with white lab coats, that they deemed as authority figures. These are healers here to help me. Another lie in this paradigm, that these authority figures, these doctors, are here to help me because they know what they're talking about, so I trust them. That's how you surrender your energy. And what the doctor was saying is the truth, power of suggestive influence, convincing you, and that your mind goes to work and making it a reality. So the doctor told him that this is 10 times more powerful than morphine. I can only give you one, but it's going to help you instantly. And guess what happened? All these guys were moaning in pain, screaming before. And when they did that and they went around, they made their rounds to every one of the patients. Within 10 minutes, they were all kicking back with their arms up like this, just chilling out. Just no pain, enjoying life. Power of suggestive influence. Placebo effect. That's why they do what they do to your mind. The virtual reality arena. Welcome to life.